Good morning, everyone. I'm believing at this point you can now see me. My name's Cindy Heitman. I'm the acting superintendent here in School District 57, and I'm so honored to be here with all of you today. It's the first day of school. This is such an exciting day for our community as we welcome back our students and welcome back all of you to what I believe is going to be a great year. As you know, we are implementing a strategic plan, and the learning and the work we do in our schools is so very important in helping us see that strategic plan through implementation. However, the purpose of getting together today is to really focus our attention on ensuring we have safe spaces for our staff and students as we continue to navigate this pandemic, COVID-19. I'll get my slides turned on, please. Awesome. So we have been using some language called a restart plan, a recovery plan, etc. We're now referring to this document as our Communicable Disease Prevention Plan, and this is your beginning orientation. I'd like to acknowledge the work of School District 42, who helped in the creation of this presentation today. I think something magical that's happened across our province. Not only has it brought us together as a learning community, it's also brought our province together as a larger learning community. I'd like to acknowledge the work we're doing on the unceded ancestral lands of the Lheidli First Nations and the ancestral lands of the McLeod Lake Indian Band and Simpcw First Nations. We are so honored to be here with you today to do this important work, the work of learning, and today to talk about the work of safety. We live in a beautiful place, and I am so thankful for those who walked this land before me. Next slide. And now I'm going to turn it over to a video message from our Board of Education to welcome you all back. I've been given that it's coming. Sorry.
Hadi, Danachaya, and hello. I am Shiroz Ali Mohammed, Vice Chair of SC57 Board of Education. Welcome to SC57 new staff and returning staff for the school year 2021-2022. I hope everybody had a great summer and had time to spend with family and friends. Personally, I always look forward to the start of the year, as I am sure staff do as well. We get to hear great adventure stories from staff and students and the laughter and sounds of students in school. The Board of Education values all your dedication and work ethic to a student-centered approach to learning. We have a new strategic plan for the coming school year, and we look forward to achieving success in the implementation. Together, we can continue to do great work for the diverse student population we serve. Welcome to the 2021-22 school year.
Hello, my name is Betty Beckering, and I'm one of 7 of your School District 57 trustees. Today, my message is for teachers, the heart and soul and the backbone of our district. Without them, learning doesn't happen. So I hope that you've had a great summer and have your passion for learning hats on so that you're able to pass that learning on to your students. We know that passion and enthusiasm pushes forward the educational message, and that's when learning happens. I hope you have a stellar 21-22 school year, and know that you're not in it alone. We will do this together. Welcome back, teachers.
Hi, I'm Trustee Ron Palillo. A big welcome back to all parents, students, and staff, and a special shout out to our dedicated Indigenous education workers and our hard-working education assistants. You are a vital part of our team, and I know you're a big part of our success of students in School District 57. thank you for the work that you do every day, and have a great and safe school year.
Hey everyone, it's Cheryl Warrington, trustee, School District 57. It's my turn to extend a warm welcome back to our secretaries and our office staff of the district. Our secretaries and office staff are our go-to people. They are the ones who are there to organize and support us and to keep us focused on time. I raise my hands in appreciation to the support that they provide for our students, our teachers, our administrators, our parents, all those who attend our schools and come into our schools, who support our district. You are the voice, the friendly, warm voice that welcomes our guests and welcomes our visitors to our schools, to our district office, and to our departments. When it feels like the sky is falling, it's your calm assurance that we can weather the storm, that all can be well. When the tears are flowing, and many of you in the schools know this, you're there to help wipe away the tears, and you know where the Band-Aids are. So it's with great pleasure that I say to each of you, welcome back, and wish you a smooth startup and an excellent, successful new year. Snashalia.
Hello everybody, I'm Bob Thompson. I'm the trustee for the Robson Valley. Calling into you from the beautiful Robson Valley with a shout out to School District 57's janitorial staff. Many of you work long hours into the night cleaning our schools, and you might feel forgotten, but believe me, the trustees have talked about you numerous times and the excellent work you did all through the COVID year, keeping our students safe. You're heroes in my book, and I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart. Thank you very much, folks.
Hey everyone, my name is Tim Bennett. I'm a trustee on the Board of Education, and just want to take a few seconds to say a huge thank you to our administration, principals, vice principals, and exempt staff for all you have done over the past 18 months to get our schools and our district through a time like no other. We know that the next year is also going to see its fair share of challenges, and just want to say thank you for all you have done and continue to do to support our students and our families.
Hello and welcome. As most of you know, I am Shiroz Ali Mohammed, Vice Chair of SB57 Board of Education. I had the privilege of being a committee member of Education Services. The magnitude of the work being done by Maintenance Facility Department is astonishing. We have a dedicated group in health and safety, custodial services, capital projects, and facilities operations. The board commends you and thanks you for keeping and maintaining our schools safe, clean for students and staff alike. I also wanted to congratulate your department in recognizing your report on energy and sustainable conservation. SC57, because of your work and dedication, has been carbon neutral since 2010. This is an amazing achievement. Congratulations. The department also has shown great leadership in displaying the logo 215 on the service vehicles. Thank you for taking the lead to address Every Child Matters.
Awesome. And I have the absolute privilege, of acknowledging the work of so many other groups who provide those social emotional learning supports in our district. So a shout out to our early childhood educators who are there in our Strong Start rooms and in some of our kindergarten classrooms. The work you do with our early learners really sets the stage for their schooling. Our youth care workers who are there to hold kids up when they need some additional supports. doing home visits, working with families, ensuring their basic needs are met, in addition to providing that team support all of our schools have. Our psychologists, speech and language pathologists, our occupational therapists, our clinicians, we count on the work you're doing every single day to support our learners and our most complex learners. And it is a great honor to be a part of a team where we celebrate each other and we celebrate the work that we do together in support of student learning. So thank you so much. And now I need to turn our attention to our COVID-19 protocols, which we're calling our communicable disease guidelines for K-12 settings. So I will turn it over to our next slide. So our intentions today is to review our guidelines. We're going to take a look at what's the same and what's different. And you'll see I intentionally put a slide up there referencing a movie we all know as Groundhog Day, because I do believe we've been here before. And in fact, it was me speaking to you a year ago as we talked about our implementation into stage 2. We are still in stage 3. There was hope that we would start the year in stage 4. Unfortunately, the Delta variant and some lower vaccination rates has resulted in our province not being ready to move us into the next stage. So we need to go through what that's going to look like for us as we open our school year. Some housekeeping. This event is being recorded. So for those of you who would like to view it again, or were unable to attend, we do have a live recording, a recording of this live event. It is important that everybody receives this orientation as part of our responsibilities to ensuring safe spaces for our students and our staff. The chat is going to be activated in a Q&A format. Now you'll see the responses are coming from me. They're actually not coming from me. There is somebody with me who is going to be logging those questions and responding to them. I'm good, but I'm not that good. Staff will work to answer the questions during this event, and any questions that we're unable to answer, we will create a Q&A and post it, and it will be shared as well. So hopefully the opportunity will be given to you for your questions, and we will do our best to answer them. So here's a little highlight of what we're going to talk about today. And as I mentioned, we're going to talk about what's the same and what's different. So some things that haven't changed. We are still using a trauma-informed lens in the work that we do. We still need to talk about personal protective equipment and access to that. We will review mask wearing. We're going to talk about being respectful of personal space, talking about health assessments, supporting complex learners, and of course, contact tracing. Those things haven't changed from where we left off together in June. What is different is the regional health differences. So each region, as you know, has the ability to change the protocols based on what's happening in the communities. What's different from last year, we now have vaccines, and vaccines has changed our self-isolation and our self-monitoring guidelines. What's changed? We need to talk about gatherings, learning groups, and staff-only spaces. We need to talk about our cleaning and disinfectant frequencies, visitor access, community use, field trips, fundraisers, and some of the curriculum and program changes. Please remember, for full document of our protocols, you can get these from our website. I'm just going to talk about some of the highlights and the things that are going to impact you directly every single day. First slide. So regional health differences. So as I mentioned to you, our medical health officers have the ability to implement local public orders. These public orders can be in specific schools, they can be in a family of schools, it can be in a community, and it can be in a whole region. So for instance, we are part of the Northern Health region, and many of our protocols include all of the communities within this Northern Health region. Public health has the ability to say, this school will have these restrictions. These activities will have these restrictions. And we will work closely with public health to ensure we have the most up-to-date information out to you as soon as it becomes available. Next slide. Vaccines. As I mentioned in what's different, we have vaccinations. We did not have vaccinations last year. And this has changed so much of what we know and how we interact with COVID-19 and the pandemic. Schools and districts are expected to work with the health authority to share evidence-based information. So we are expected to share that information in terms of what we know about what's happening with the pandemic. We're expected to share details on how and when people can get vaccinated with staff, students, and families prior to the start of the school year. So we have sent out some information about that, and additional information will be going home today. And we need to explore opportunities to establish school-based vaccination clinics to help increase community uptake. School District 57 will have on-site vaccinations happening outside of our secondary schools, 4 of our secondary schools beginning tomorrow. We will see vaccination vans in 4 of our school parking lots where students will have an opportunity to receive vaccinations. This is a responsibility we have as part of the province and as part of public school system. If you have any questions or concerns, please reach out to your school principal. Next slide. As I mentioned, with vaccines, it's changed so much of how we interact with the pandemic and self-isolating and self-monitoring. It's very important to emphasize, anytime you've been asked to self-isolate or self-monitor, we take the direction of public health. Self-isolation is required for a person confirmed as testing positive for COVID-19. So if you test positive, you will be asked to self-isolate. Only some close contacts will be asked to self-isolate if directed by public health. And again, it is up to public health to make these decisions. We do not. We are not health professionals. We don't get to make those decisions. Anyone who's traveled outside of Canada in the last 14 days and has not been fully vaccinated will be required to self-isolate. And a person who has been tested for COVID-19 and does not have the results yet will be asked to self-isolate, which means you do not come to work and you follow the protocols of self-isolation given to you by public health. Self-monitoring is going to become more common for us, and again, directed by public health. Individuals who self-monitor can continue to attend work as long as they are asymptomatic. Self-monitoring is required for close contacts who've already had COVID-19, who are partially or fully vaccinated, and again, public health will give you those instructions. Self-monitoring is required for individuals who've been exposed but who are not determined to be close contacts who need to self-isolate. So when you are in a situation where you're not sure whether you are to self-isolate or self-monitor, that is an important question for you to ask public health when you're interacting with them. And that'll be a question we follow up with. Have you been asked to self-monitor or to self-isolate? Because the actions are very different for both of those. Next slide, please. Physical distancing. This is very different from what we experienced last year. We understand so much more around this pandemic and around this virus. Learning groups and the 2-meter physical distancing are no longer required at this time. Schools help create spaces using a trauma-informed approach with the following strategies. So please remember, we talk about a trauma-informed approach. That means there's comfort levels of every individual, and we need to be respectful of that. I actually think we've become very good about ensuring we're not in other people's space, which isn't a bad thing for everyone when we're talking about the cold and flu season. So some strategies. Remind students of personal space by using signs and visual prompts. So you'll continue to see signs and visual prompts up in our schools, just reminding us to spread out at all times if possible. We want to look at the spaces that we're in, and we want to spread ourselves out. So we want to ensure that we're utilizing the corners of the room and all the space possible. There are no rules. We don't have to ensure that we are 2 meters apart. We just need to be thoughtful and respectful of one another. We want to implement some strategies to prevent crowding at pickup and drop-off times. We want to ensure we're not creating bottlenecks of people at those busy times. Managing our hallways by using some floor markings. And I know when I put my principal hat on and I think about the floor markings and the ability to help our learners regulate themselves in the hallways, So many of those strategies we implemented for safety are very helpful in the educational learning of our students. And for our secondary schools, lockers are back, and I know our students are so happy that they have access to their lockers. But we really need to help remind our students to limit the time spent at lockers and provide those reinforcements that we're not having that crowding that we know takes place. This is going to be an adjustment for our students. We need to remember that they've been apart for some of them a very long time, and the need for contact and being together is going to be really important. So how do we do it in a trauma-informed way where we're reminding our learners around the limiting their crowding, yet honoring their ability to connect with one another? Next slide, please. School gatherings and events. It's important to note that the public health orders for the public do not apply to school settings. So we acknowledge we received some information last week around public gatherings for the public outside of school settings. Does not apply inside our buildings. So we need to think about that trauma-informed lens and a gradual transition to larger gatherings. So for example, school assemblies. We've gone from having limited opportunities to be together to saying, okay, we can be together again. So how do we do that in a way that respects students and staff comfort levels? And I encourage you to work as a staff to problem solve this and to create a plan. Inter-school events and sports can occur in line with those permitted in the region. So we know that we can have inter-school sports, and we're looking forward to seeing our kids back in the gyms. At this time, vaccination passports are not required. We do not need proof of vaccination in our buildings. However, with so much of our experiences that we learned from last year, that could always change. However, at this time, it's not required. Next slide. Staff-only spaces. So like our students get to gather again and be together, so do we. We need to be considerate of the spaces that we have that are staff only. This is not limited to staff rooms, copy rooms, meeting rooms, prep rooms, anytime that we are together. Consider virtual options for large meetings, because again, we're talking about that gradual and that comfort level. Utilizing floor markings in these staff-only spaces. Encourage staff to use and wash cutlery and plates and avoid using communal dishes. I think we all like to do that. Nobody likes it when somebody else drinks out of their coffee cup. We want to wipe shared appliances once a day with wipes or disinfectant. Again, we became so good at wiping and cleaning up after ourselves, and these are some very good practices that we can continue. And place your masks back on immediately after eating and drinking. When you're in the staff room and you're having your lunch or you're on a break and you're having your cup of coffee, we can remove our masks while eating or drinking. It's our responsibilities to put it back on as soon as we're done. Next slide, please. Cleaning and disinfecting frequencies. So last year, frequently touched surfaces needed to be cleaned twice a day. Given the information, given our knowledge of the pandemic, we know that this is no longer required, and once a day means, once a day cleaning and disinfecting is appropriate. So frequently touched surfaces includes desks, counters, doorknobs, light switches, hand railings, water fountain, water bottle filling stations, etc. These will be cleaned and disinfected once a day, and we will continue to use our sprayers that we have that work wonderfully to attach the disinfectant to all the surfaces. So that practice will continue once a day. It will no longer be occurring at lunchtime during those break times. So that practice of waiting for your room to be disinfected is no longer something that we will see happen this year. Garbage containers will continue to be emptied daily. Surfaces that are visibly dirty will be cleaned daily. Frequently used toys, sporting equipment, music instruments should be cleaned daily. And we need to wash our hands before and after handling materials and equipment that cannot be washed. So I want you to think about some of those shared manipulatives and some of those soft items that we see in some of our younger students' classrooms, our puppets and some things in our centers. So we're just ensuring that our hands are being washed before and after use. So things we're keeping, the diligent hand washing and disinfecting, hand sanitizing. Next slide, please. plan will be a little bit different this year. Last year we had the wonderful daytime custodians, but because we're cleaning everything once a day, we need to have those spaces emptied, and the best way for our custodial staff to do that is when we're not in our buildings. Secondary, pre-COVID schedules will begin the school year. Cleaning and disinfecting will happen once a day. In our elementary, pre-COVID-19 schedules will begin once again with the evening custodians. What we've added for additional support is an on-call custodian system for immediate cleaning of bodily fluids where necessary. Custodian services will communicate that plan, and we are working on getting that information out to our schools so they know how we can deploy those on-call folks to help us with those bodily fluids. Next slide, please. Visitor access. A big change from last year. Our front or main doors will be unlocked for visitor access. We are encouraging, and a preference has been established for appointments. Schools are responsible for ensuring the visitors are aware of the protocols we have in place and that they complete a health check prior to entering the school. We'll continue to have all of our visitors sign in and sign out, and our itinerant staff. So that means for folks like myself who go from school to school, we are required to sign in and keep those records for 45 days for contact tracing. We must ensure our visitors wear masks while inside the schools. And most important, limit their access to the areas for the purpose of their visit. So if a visitor is coming in to meet with a teacher, they only go to that space in which they are there for. We do not want to have people going from classroom to classroom or wandering throughout our halls. And once again, proof of vaccination is not required to enter our buildings for visitors. Next slide. Community access. Times and availabilities will be determined, and this is something that we need to further work on, but we wanted to give you the information in advance. After hours community use is allowed, and it must be in alignment with our other health and safety measures. Activities are permitted as relevant to our public health recommendations. Hand hygiene, ensuring people are staying home when they're ill, all of our health and safety measures need to be followed. User groups must keep their own records, and this is work that we need to further explore. At this time, we will not have community access, but it will be coming this fall. Next slide, please. Kindergarten program and new families. Now we know for so many of our new families, the first time students are in school, there's so many worries. We're nervous. I can think of the day I brought my 5-year-olds to school and the feeling of apprehension. It's really important that we communicate our information to our families and our new families prior to school starting. We've published information, we've sent out letters, we've done videos to try to get this information out, but we're asking our schools and our staff to help with this as well. Parents and caregivers must follow the visitor guidelines. That includes washing your hands, staying home if you're ill, limiting their access, and keeping records of the keeping records for the sign-in for contact tracing. We want to be welcoming. We want to help ensure our families know that they're safe and that their kids are safe, but we all need to work together. Next slide, please. Field trips and fundraisers. Field trips can be planned in accordance to our disease prevention plan and our school district policies. All field trips must align with our regional and provincial orders at the time of the trip. So this is important because right now there is to be no non-essential travel to the interior health region. So for some of our sports teams who sometimes travel for trips and for games, that's limited right now. We are not able to travel to the interior health region for these purposes. It'll be important for us to stay current with those provincial orders so we know what health regions we can be in and which ones we cannot. Fundraisers can be back. And I know last year we had lots of questions around fundraisers and can we do this and can we do this and can we sort and can we do food sales, etc. Those are all back in alignment with our disease prevention plan, including food service. We are back to regular food service. Next slide, please. Okay, we're going to talk about masks. All staff are required to wear a non-medical mask, a face covering in the school at all times. And I'm going to talk about exceptions on the next slide, so hang tight. This is a reminder, if you're using a face shield, you must also wear a mask. All students in grades 4 to 12 are required to wear a mask in schools at all times. Staff and students are encouraged to bring their own masks. However, disposable masks will be available to those who are in need. We have not purchased reusable masks this year for everybody. We are using disposable masks in our schools for this school year. Next slide, please. As mentioned, there are some exceptions. And this is the orders that have come from Public Health, Provincial Health Officer, and the Ministry of Education. So, exceptions to mask wearing are a person who cannot tolerate wearing a mask for health or behavioral reasons, a person who isn't able to put the mask on or remove the mask without assistance from another person. If the mask is removed temporarily for the purposes of identifying the person wearing it. So sometimes we can't identify somebody until we remove the mask because all we see are eyes. If the mask is removed temporarily to engage in an educational activity that cannot be performed while wearing a mask. So for example, playing a woodwind instrument or engaging in high intensity physical activity. If a person is eating or drinking, while outside, you do not need to wear a mask. While seated in an office or workspace alone. So we have lots of questions around this one. If you are sitting at your desk and you are the only person in that space, you do not have to wear a mask. If somebody else enters, you need to put on a mask. If a person is behind a barrier, and I will say barriers are no longer required. However, if you'd like to keep your barrier up, please do so. This is about ensuring everybody feels comfortable in our learning environments. And finally, while providing a service to a person with a disability or diverse abilities, including but not limited to hearing impairment, where visual cues and facial expressions, lip reading, or movement is important. For so many of our learners, especially our young learners, seeing our mouths and seeing the movement of speech is super important, and we can remove our masks for the purposes of that work. It is really something I need to do, and that is to remind schools that we do not require a healthcare note to confirm students cannot wear a mask. No student should be prevented from attending or fully participating at school if they do not wear a mask. Next slide, please. Guidance for mask use during music and education and physical activity in secondary schools is detailed in our music program, physical health and education, and school sports. So when you go into our detailed plan, you'll see specific mask wearing. Staff should use positive and inclusive approaches to engaging students in the wearing of masks and should not employ measures that are punitive or stigmatizing in nature. Please remember our trauma-informed practices as we're moving forward with this challenging task of mask wearing. Next slide, please. Students in grades kindergarten to 3 are encouraged to wear masks indoors in schools and on school buses, but are not required to do so. Mask wearing remains a personal choice or a family and caregiver choice for these students, and their choices must be respected. This includes our grade 3-4 combined classes. The language is very clear. Students in grades 4 to 12 are required to wear masks. Students in grade 3, it's recommended and encouraged, but not required. Next slide, please. Daily health assessments. Once again, we are asking that daily health assessments be completed by all students, visitors, and by our staff. Parents and caregivers are encouraged to use the daily health check app. Staff and other adults can refer to the daily self-assessment that we have as a school district. Please refer to the BCCDC's guidelines for when to get tested. And if you're ever unsure, call the 811 number or the Northern Health number to check to see what your next step should be. And again, we cannot reinforce this enough. Stay home if you are sick. Gone are the days where we felt great pride in toughing it out and I'm sick, but I'm here for my students. This is a huge shift for us. If you are not well, please stay home. That is the best defense against spreading of this virus. Next slide, please. Emergency procedures. So we have so many protocols in place for safety. Please remember, in the event of an actual emergency, emergency procedures and what we've outlined take precedent over COVID-19 preventative measures. We need to get our students out of the building as fast as possible, and it is okay if there's a little bit of crowding when that happens. So for this year, staff should be notified in advance of emergency evacuation drills. We used to do, we let everybody know, then we let the staff know, and then it was a surprise. We will not be doing that. Staff will know of all emergency evacuation drills. We need to follow the BC Fire Code, which means we need to do 6 fire evacuations a year, conduct 2 lockdown drills a year, and we need to continue to update our fire safety plans on an annual basis. Next slide, please. Supporting complex learners. As mentioned, we've got great wraparound supports and staff that help us supporting our complex learners. But we need to think about how do we manage and support learners who have a challenging time following some of our COVID protocols. Supporting students with diverse abilities may require support services to be within close proximity or in physical contact with our students, and we know that. When these supports are required, staff must wear a mask when delivering such services. Wear appropriate personal protective equipment that is part of the personal care routine normally encountered in the regular course of their work. So if wearing gloves, wearing face shields has always been part of the plan, please continue to do so. Next slide, please. Students in grade kindergarten to grade 3 complex learners. Really, the parent and the caregiver should determine whether the student should be wearing any personal protective equipment, such as a mask, while receiving those services. Quite often, these students don't have the ability to make those decisions, and the caregiver can make those decisions upon their behalf. Students in grade 4 to 12 are required to wear a non-medical mask or face covering when receiving services. Please remember the exceptions that do exist. Barriers can often be helpful when supporting some of these learners. Exceptions are made following those exception guidelines. Next slide, please. Classroom spaces. So as you all recall, last year, we spent a significant amount of our time arranging our classroom spaces to ensure we were physical distancing, having our seating arrangements made so students were face-to-face, removing all of our soft materials and our carpets. This is no longer the case. You can arrange your classroom to utilize the available space, so spread out as much as you can, but physical distancing is not required. Carpets and rugs are welcome, and I know for our primary teachers, we are so excited to have our carpets back as they provided amazing visual cues for our little learners. Toys and manipulatives are welcome, and this includes our soft toys. So for our play centers and our developmental activities, puppets can come back, and some of our centers will have the luxury of our toys again. And students can sit a configuration that best meets the needs of the learners and the learning activities. So again, our classrooms will be as close to normal as they can at this time. Next slide, please. Physical education and sports. Staff are required to wear a mask during PE classes when they're indoors and a barrier is not present. So you are required to wear masks, as are our students in grades 4 to 7. You need to create space between students and staff and encourage outdoor activities as much as possible. And masks can be removed during high intensity physical activity. So when we know that we're going to have an elevated heart rate, masks can be removed for students at that time. Next slide, please. We want to spread our students out and use the space as much as possible. And this one we think is a little bit weird, but hey, you never know. Equipment that touches the mouth And I can think of some of our little students, it unintentionally touches the mouth, need to be cleaned and disinfected in between usages. Inter and intra sports are allowed at this time, but please remember this could change due to elevated risks and direction of our provincial health officers. Next slide, please. Talking a little bit more about physical education and sport, low intensity exercise, students in grades 4 to 7 are required to wear those masks. Shared equipment can be used and it needs to be cleaned daily as per the cleaning and disinfectant guidelines in our comprehensive protocol. Students should be encouraged to practice proper hand hygiene before and after participating in physical activity and equipment use. So please ensure your students are washing their hands and before and after using PE equipment. Shared teaching aids should be disinfected once a day. Include more individual pursuits than traditional team activities. So think about all those things that we can do that provide an opportunity for us to spread out and explore the outdoors. We have such a short season, and it saddens me to say, for outside sports and activities before snow falls. So let's get outside. We've had a beautiful summer, and so far the fall is beautiful as well. And we know that we can be outside without a mask at this time. I encourage you all to take your kids outside. Next slide, please. Music, K to 12, and I saw a question in the chat. All K to 12 staff and students in grade 4 to 7 must wear a mask while singing indoors, unless they're behind a physical barrier. So we can sing outside without a mask, but we need to keep our masks on when we're singing. Physical contact is to be minimized between students. So please remember there's a difference between physical distancing and physical contact. And we still want to try to minimize physical contact. So the actual touching of one another, shoulder to shoulder, etc., in our singing activities. And equipment that touches the mouth, like instruments, should not be shared unless cleaned and disinfected between usages. Next slide, please. So, a couple of things I want to draw to your attention. In the full comprehensive communicable disease plan, you'll see there's detailed information for all curricular areas. I encourage you all to spend some time going through that document and really gain an understanding of our protocols at this time. All questions should be directed to your school principal and vice principals. And any site-based concerns will be addressed through your joint occupation, health, and safety committee. So the steps are: talk to your principal, bring it to your health and safety committee, and if you still feel as though you need some things checked out or looked at further, let your JOSH committee know, and they will forward that to the appropriate person within our district. Next, and I finally want to end the presentation by saying thank you, Musi Cho, and just acknowledge the work that you're all doing. I feel so honored to be a part of School District 57. And I think it's amazing that we have an opportunity to join on this first day to come together to talk about the health and safety of ourselves and of our students and families. The work we do is such important work in shaping the lives of young people. And I believe we have an incredible team to do this work. And I think about how far we've come in a year in terms of our understanding of safety. And I think of all the amazing practices that we've adopted that I see continuing as we go forward. On behalf of our school district, I want to thank you and welcome you to the school year. Be safe, be kind, and be calm. Thank you, everyone.